Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I'm your host, Tim Keller. Along with me, as he always is Mr. Matt Disher. And we have our first returning guest, and in my opinion, possibly my favorite guest we've had on, Mr. Jeff Hancher of Jeff Hancher Enterprises. Jeff, it is fantastic to see you again. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. It's good to be back, and I'm learning for the first time. I'm the first returning guest, so I always like to be in first. I love to stack rank and compete. So if somebody does come on a second time, you got to let me know so we can look at the hat trick.
We'll have to get you into that third spot eventually. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I like to call you a legacy guest. That's what we're going to start. Not return guest, a legacy guest, like one of the founding legacy members.
There you go.
A friend of the show, if you will.
Right, yeah. A friend of the show. You'll have a plaque on the wall behind me at some point in time.
I'm in.
I like it. I like it a lot. As we always do, we like to go to military.com for some news. We'll start off with the heavier side of news today. The Navy fires warning shots at Iranian fast attack crafts. So, we all know about the USS Cole years ago. Small vessel ran into the side of the USS Cole, caused a lot of damage, caused some death, caused some injuries. It seems like Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is once again harassing some U.S. ships over there in the Gulf. So it looks like the article is talking about 3 boats at about 8 p.m. were incoming at a naval vessel as well as a Coast Guard vessel at high rates of speed. They said they got within 68 yards of both of the vessels. And after multiple warnings, verbal warnings, I'm sure horns and sirens were blasting, the Navy decided to fire off a warning shot. So this is just, the tensions are rising. We need to stay on alert over there. I hope everybody that's over there right now gets to come home safe. Apparently back in April, 11 fast attack crafts were doing similar things, harassing U.S. Navy and Coast Guard ships while they were in operations in Iranian waters. This isn't great.
New.
Yeah.
It's nothing new. I'll tell you, when I was deployed with the USS Boxer ARG, this would have been in 2001, the middle of 2001, just after the U.S. Cole bombing, just before 9/11 went down. We were in that area. Oddly enough, I was the laundry guy. That was laundry duty on the ship that week for my platoon. And so I was doing laundry. I was down if anybody's ever done laundry on a ship, they're in these rooms at the very bottom of the ship. And while I'm down there, of course, I'm thinking about what happened to the USS Cole, and that when you're down there, there's nobody else down there. It's very loud. You can't hear the alarms going off. You can't hear the 1MC, which is the intercom system. And I swear I heard the 1MC go off, and it's 11 o'clock at night. And it's and so I eventually left the laundry machines on and I went upstairs to the smoke deck where everybody was having, they're smoking cigarettes. We went out there and there was an armored Iranian fast attack craft sitting what felt like 5 feet off the side of our ship. Our spotlights were pointed on it. Our scat teams were on their guns. Everybody was going crazy. The ship was going crazy. All of this was happening for 15 minutes while I was just kind of hanging out in the bottom deck of the ship. And I thought to myself, as a 19-year-old, I'm thinking, man, if this were an actual threat, if this guy was going to run into the ship and try to do harm to us, I wouldn't have known it because I couldn't hear anything down there. I thought I heard the 1MC go off, so I figured I'd go up above decks, and I was right. My hunch was right. So nothing new. We've been doing this for a while, but it's not often that we're exchanging gunfire or shooting at or near them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's not good to hear. So hopefully cooler heads prevail and continue to prevail over there, and everybody gets to come home safe. That is the ultimate goal. On the lighter side of news, the COVID vaccines are rolling out. They are open to the masses now. And so there are some COVID-19 vaccine discounts available out there. If you have both your COVID shots, or if you had the Johnson & Johnson, hopefully you didn't have any side effects and everything's good. But you can go to Krispy Kreme and show your vaccine card and get a free donut every day for the rest of the year. White Castle is giving out free desserts. Matt, Cincinnati Reds baseball tickets for $10 for fully vaccinated fans.
Here's the odd thing, that in a normal baseball year, in the last few years, the Reds ballpark has been 1/10 full during any game, maybe except for the weekend games.
Tickets are normal.
Right. So, but here's the funny thing. Now that there is decreased capacity, you can't get tickets. And I'm like, so all they had to do was create new demand, and now everybody wants to be there. I mean, the Reds are doing well this year too. They're putting it on so far. So that's probably a difference in the last handful of years. They haven't been really, making they haven't been making Sports Center highlights or anything.
They've created demand.
There you go.
Right. Created demand.
It's amazing how active people want to be after they haven't been able to be active for such a long period of time. You can get your vaccine cards laminated for free at Staples, Office Max, and Office Depot. If maybe someday you want to hide that away in your safe and then show your grandkids, look at what we went through. Sam Adams is giving away $7 to spend on a Sam Adams beer at your local watering hole to the first 10,000 people that tweet and Instagram with the tag #ShopForSam. So you can get $7 to buy yourself a Sam Adams at a bar.
Why is it all the vices that are bad for you? It's donuts and
donuts, beer,
fast food, and beer. Here,
let's coming out strong.
Right. Trade in your health for your health. Right.
Well, let's be honest. If you got that $10 ticket to the Reds game, that $7 isn't covering the Sam Adams at the ballpark.
Right. Right.
They should be handing out Lipitors with the vaccine.
Right. Here's your $15 nachos.
And Budweiser is also giving away free beer to those who are vaccinated. You can visit abeeronbud.com until May 16th for details to enter. 21 and over only, obviously. But yeah, I thought that was neat that certain companies are giving things away, or at least discounts to those who've decided to be vaccinated. But yeah, since we're talking about vaccination, Jeff, the last time we had you on, you had really just jumped. I mean, it was a matter of 3-4 months that you had jumped into the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
To be your own boss, to have your own company when this pandemic really started to hit. And you admittedly said, hey, this was possibly the most stressful time of my life.
Yeah.
A, making these changes, and then B, all of a sudden this unforeseen pandemic hits. So let's talk about that. Since the pandemic's hit, what kind of lessons have you learned? How have you survived? How have you made it happen?
Boy, it's been one pivot after the next. I can tell you that. And change management has never been greater in my life. First off, making the leap was a stressful move in and of itself when the world was still functioning as quote unquote normal. That was stressful enough. If you remember back to the story, I wasn't leaving broken. I was pursuing, a goal, a dream. So I wasn't leaving something that I hated or was miserable. So we make this big leap, and, I have this plan of what my model is going to look like and how I was going to serve the business community and so forth. And I mean, look, I left in December of 2019. I'm starting to get my feet under me. And by March of 20, the whole bottom fell out. And so I had to pivot a lot, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that there were a few times that I had to dust off that resume and think to myself, hey, maybe I need to try to get back in. But here was the other stark reality. Everybody was laying off.
Right.
There was, reduction in force happening. I mean, all of this stuff going on. So I'm thinking, boy, this is a worst case scenario. Not only is my business going to fail potentially, but I'm not going to be able to get a job. So I pivoted. Here's what I found during this process. The skill that I have and the gifts that I have to offer have never been in higher demand, helping people process through change. I swore I'd never be an executive coach, but I will tell you that was the biggest benefit in 2020, and even more so now in 2021, because the change is still happening. So I get a front row seat to executives, people making the big decisions in the corner offices and in the boardrooms to help them navigate through what this change has been. So it has been, to say it's been fulfilling would be a gross understatement. I have enjoyed every single minute of it. I love being on the front lines of change. And I love supporting people who are building their dreams and their businesses. So it's been amazing, but it hasn't come without some great challenges.
Well, you talked about, getting that front view of those people in those corner offices, those people making those big decisions, you an entrepreneur yourself, what kind of insight do you have for other entrepreneurs out there? What kind of trends are you seeing possibly coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I invest a lot of time into that, Tim. And I feel I owe it to my clients as well as the people that I'm trying to make deposits into to anticipate what's coming. And I do a lot of work with folks that sit, throughout Harvard Business Review, the likes of Michael Watkins, really just creating these think tanks to find out what are the trends coming. And I went on at the, really just about a month ago, I went public with what I'm anticipating these trends are going to be for 2021. And my clients get a front row seat to that, but I also have been putting it out on my podcast as well. A couple of those things that I would highlight without going into great detail is that employers are going to have to really start driving towards life experience versus just managing the employee experience. And there's going to have to be these level of deposits made. I call it creating moments. And why this is so important is because we're hearing a lot of organizations saying that we're not going back to normal. They're questioning brick and mortar. They're going to go remote. They see value in it. However, what the gap is the employee overall experience. It used to be very taboo to dive into the life experience of an employee, especially for large corporations. But I will tell you this to any executive that's listening, you either dive into this or you will lose. We have to dive into the life experience. We have to dive into creating moments for people, which brings me to the other point. Mental health support will be the new normal. Mental health support is going to be more critical than it's ever been. There was a recent report that came out from Gardner Research that estimated that nearly 45% increase in mental health support and benefits by March of 2021. And so a 45% increase, well, where is this coming from and why are people going down this road? Well-being will be on the forefront of how we engage and endear our people. By late March, 68% of large organizations introduced more mental health and well-being into their organization. So why is this important? Well, not everybody has made this transition well. Not everybody is moving in composure. And this has rattled a lot of different things, both socially and personally. And so we know as employers that we have to help people elevate their personal life to get productivity at work. So I would tell you to evaluate your mental health budget. What resources do you have and what are you doing? The last one that I'll tell you, and I have 5 points, but I won't go into all 5. I'm going to hit the ones I think are the most important. The next one is turnover. We're going to see turnover like never before. We're starting to see it now, and we're starting to see it across the board. Well, why all the turnover? I will tell you, I believe in Q3 and Q4 is when it's going to go the highest. We're going to have more vaccination. The fear factor is going to come down a little bit more. People are going to reflect back through this pandemic and remind themselves what they can live without and what they want to do. I want to move back home. I want to live where it's warmer. We're also seeing this in the C-suite. People that can retire are retiring. Yep. This is a stressful time to be at the top of the food chain. And it's like, you know what? I don't need to be here. I can retire, so I'm going to retire. And a lot of them are going to move their talents to the nonprofit space for that gratification. So we're going to see tremendous turnover. I think it will be a short-term trend, but it's one you got to brace for. 2 ways you do that. 1, ABR, always be recruiting. We have to be attractive to the marketplace. The other thing I would tell you is you have to retain. And despite your best efforts, if you do it flawlessly, you're still going to fall victim to this. But like never before, you have to retain your top talent. Look at what you're doing from a payroll standpoint. Are you paying people properly? And what are you doing to engage? And I don't mean just create vision. Nobody ever said of a great working environment, man, I got to tell you, I love how that manager drives an agenda. I love how he runs a meeting. I love how he taught us how to handle an objection. No, if you think about it, even with you two, what you remember about your childhood, about a leader is an experience and a moment they created for you. We got to get good at this to retain, but we've got to be, we got to have the recruiting hat on like never before as well. Turnover is coming. So I would hit those three things pretty hard because those are the trends that I'm seeing coming, and they're happening as we speak.
I'll add some flavor to that too. I think that there are a lot of people that have watched how their companies have behaved through this pandemic, through this crisis. Not only from a financial perspective, but also from the perspective of humans, how people were, how people were being treated, how furloughs and comebacks and firings and layoffs and et cetera, et cetera. And it's ugly. It allows businesses to rear the ugly side of business, which is profits, bottom lines are king. And in a market where a lot of businesses, aside from a handful of consumer brands who were doing really well through this, and shipping, who was doing really well for this in some cases, a lot of other companies suffered. Their bottom line suffered. And so they had to make tough choices to keep stock prices strong and to keep profits in the bank, et cetera, et cetera. So I think people saw that. And you have this growing population of young people. And I say young people, I mean probably anybody under 40 in the workplace, who it is not so important to them as it was the generation before them, how, staying at a company for 30 years. They don't do these legacy tours with companies anymore. They're looking for humanitarian volunteerism. They're looking for opportunities to engage. Pay is not necessarily the most important thing anymore. Flexibility is, et cetera, et cetera. And you saw companies, again, the ugly side of business had to rear its head through all of this. Decisions had to be made. And so I think people are looking around and saying, exactly to your point, Jeff, what's important to me? What do I want out of my career? What's next? I've made these decisions in my own career where I made a big leap a few years back for money. It was almost strictly for money, and it was the worst decision I ever made. And so it's those things, people evaluating what's happening and where they can go when they can spend the rest of their time. So a lot of changes. I'll tell you, as a recruiter by trade, what you said before, always be recruiting, Jeff. That's music to my ears, because that's where we thrive. It's the Super Bowl for recruiters this year, right? So so much more to come down that pipe, but it's going to be. I agree with you. We're seeing it. Everybody's seeing it. People are moving around. People are changing jobs. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and the people who are competitive, were competitive pre-pandemic, are still more competitive for those jobs that they have to backfill now. The companies who got rid of people have to backfill those jobs, and the more competitive players are coming in and taking those jobs. So the newbies in some cases might have to take smaller salaries, or they're just not going to have great opportunities available to them.
It's true. And that's how we should stack rank of importance. And look, whether you call it favoritism or not, I always tell my clients that are leading organizations, you need to stack rank your people, senior leadership, by level of importance. Who can't you live without, and what are you doing about it? And what are you doing about it not only means how am I going to retain this person, but who's their backfill? Who do I have in the drawer that's ready to go? Or how many people? This is one of those moments that you should be recruiting even if you don't have an opening. Right. And I know you got to cut through some HR red tape in the big companies to do that, but I'm telling you, suit yourself, but that has to happen. So yes, you have to look at the employee experience and all of these things, but those are practical things, strategy type things that we have to be looking at. To your point of flexibility is we need to be looking at our model. What does our model look like? How can we create output-based work versus punching the clock type work? Now, look, if you're in retail or whatever it might be, that model is not going to go away. But if you can switch from you work from 9 to 5 and you're going to do this to, hey, look, we just in a week's time, this is the output we need. You can do it whenever you want. If that's an option to you, I would tell you to run fast towards that, because people are looking for that flexibility. So don't just look at how can we make the employee experience better. And we're not talking about, pony rides and cotton candy. Those are good, but we have to capture the whole person. But we also have to look at strategy. We have to look at strategy on how can we shift from location to time and output based, But the other thing that I think we have to be looking at is what talent can I outsource? I think this is going to become a popular trend in 21, meaning, do we need that marketing person or can we outsource that? Can I just outsource a consultant like a Jeff Hancher, or do I need to hire somebody for this project work? Can I just bring him in when we need him and then let him go and almost become the general contractor? I think this is also going to be a very popular trend because models are changing. And here's what we know. Well, we've always done it this way. We'll destroy you. And so we've got to be flexible to thinking about how can I outsource these skill-based roles, whether it's marketing, whether it's consulting, whether it's, technical IT type stuff, recruiting, Matt, right?
Right.
How much of this can we outsource? Are you going to pay more? Yeah, you're going to pay more, but you got to play the short-term game and the long-term game. You may pay more by the hour for this type of, but how often do you really need it? So we have to think about that as a way to drive productivity and beat this turnover churn. I'm calling it the COVID churn that's coming in Q3 and Q4 like never before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you guys both kind of brought it up. Times are changing. Things are changing. Systems are changing. Thoughts are changing. So if you're way out in the lead, that's great. If you do not continue to change with the times, you're going to get stuck in the mud and everybody's going to pass right on by. But we talked also about, with that turnover, we have a lot of people that have been displaced from their jobs for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So you find yourself displaced from a job. You're now a job seeker in this post-COVID world. How would a leader that's, dusting off that resume, as you said, Jeff, putting in on all these different jobs, getting to sit down on Zoom calls or maybe in a person-to-person interview, how would they convey to this recruiter or this hiring manager that I'm the leader you're looking for?
Yeah, it's a good question. Part of this is gamesmanship, to be quite frank. I believe that because I think that we're going to get caught in the sea of sameness. These people that are in the hunt for work or they're ready to pivot or they're ready to make the leap, you could be the best kept secret in all of the world. So the first thing I would tell people is there has to be a little bit of gamesmanship. First and foremost, build your network because referrals are king. If I know Matt and Matt knows the hiring manager, my odds of winning are much, much greater. The other thing I would tell people, when possible, start looking for a better job when you have a good one, if that's possible. Don't wait. Don't be insensitive and say, well, I'm out of here. We'll figure it out. I'm going to go make henna tattoos on a tropical island. Then we'll come back and figure it out. Like, suit yourself, but probably not the best strategy. If you find yourself in the hunt for a position, though, work your network first. Those are where your best leads are going to come from. But the second thing that I'll tell you, and this is going to be like a Mr. Obvious moment, but I will tell you it carries tremendous impact. If you have somebody's cell phone number and Matt says, hey, call Tim, Tim's the guy, do not call them. Do not text them. What I'm going to recommend that people do is they take a video of themselves. Hey, Tim, this is Jeff Hancher. I'm the best leader that the world has ever seen. Here's why I'm the best leader. Here's a little bit about my background. Matt Disher said that you and I should probably connect over a virtual coffee. Love to learn more about what you're doing and what skills I have that maybe I could help support your efforts. Look forward to talking to you soon. And text that video over. This is what is getting people out of the sea of sameness. And I've coached several people through this process. If you don't have it and you just see a company and there's Matt Disher, he works at XYZ company and I just need my foot in the door. What we see every day is the LinkedIn message, the text. Don't go text, go audio, hit that microphone icon and leave a 1-minute tremendous elevator pitch that is high impact and compel Matt Disher to call you back. Better yet is take a video of yourself, grab a 2x2 whiteboard and write on it, Matt Disher, and smile big. What he's going to see when he opens that message is his name and your big smile. Are you playing that, Matt? Are you playing that video, Matt?
No, I'm playing that video. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you're playing it. Why? You got my name. This guy knows who I am. He's smiling. I'm engaging. Once you get your foot in the door, which is the hardest thing, we know this from a recruiting standpoint, a sales standpoint. I'm the best leader that the world has ever seen. I just need the interview. I just need the chance. So first is gamesmanship. Get out of the sea of sameness. Find ways to get in the door. Once you're in the door, then it's go time. Don't talk about what you've done. Talk about what you're about to do for their organization. 3 key areas that you have to talk about in an interview now more than ever, because the market is flooded with you and everybody else that's amazing. Talk about methods, talk about results, and talk about culture and how that's going to translate into helping them. They see your resume. They know how cool you are. You don't need to parade yourself around. Put that into how this is going to benefit their company. And it goes without saying, do your homework. Pre-call plan, know everything about the organization and as much about that hiring manager as you can, then showcase who you are and how it applies.
That is some of the best advice I've heard, Jeff. A lot of what you just said is advice that I give a lot of people when I talk to them. I talk to a lot of people who are coming out of the military right now. And the question always is, well, I've been leading in the military. I've been 20 years military, doing this, doing that, doing the other thing. How do I get in front of a hiring manager in a business that does something different from what I've been doing in the military? And a lot of what you said, I repeat almost verbatim, the networking piece. I always tell people there's 3 pieces of advice to connect to your next great opportunity: network, and network. Applying to jobs, dropping resumes into applicant tracking systems, things like that. That's the steam engine of applying to jobs. It's the steam engine of career building. I call it the steam engine because it's not completely extinct, but it's so old and outdated. It's such an outdated way of doing things. Now we have these tools to get in front of the people you need to get in front of, as you just mentioned. Make a video, take a picture, call people on the phone, connect with them on LinkedIn. A lot of people I talk to don't quite understand that is the way to get in front of a person. And the secondary piece of advice that I give them quite often is not that you're dropping in to ask for the job. You're dropping in to have a conversation and ask about the organization. Yes. So what tends to happen when somebody drops in on me, even though I'm in recruitment, somebody drops in on me and they say, hey, I want this job in Tampa. And I'm like, okay, great. What qualifies you for that job? Well, I'm looking at their resume, like nothing qualifies you. Now I have to deal with this strange, awkward conversation of this is not the job for you. You're convinced that it is, but this is not the job for you. Maybe we look at something else. Versus a person who comes to me and says, hey, I'm really curious to know a little bit more about your industry in Tampa. Like, what opportunities are there? Here's where my qualifications lie. And I'm like, oh, well, in that case, we're not having a conversation. I'm not rejecting you or accepting you. What we're doing is exploring, and then we're going to take it from there and plug into some sort of opportunity. But one other thing you said, Jeff, results. Can't tell you how many times I see a resume and there are no results on it. There's no way of selling metrics to anybody. Hiring managers, recruiters love to see numbers, dollar amounts. I saved $1 million. I created $1 million, especially for sales jobs. As you know, Jeff, you're a sales pro.
Yeah.
When you go for a new job, they want to see how many millions of dollars you closed, how much business you generated, how many relationships you have, and what that meant for the bottom line. Because back to that conversation about tough decisions through COVID, that's what companies care about. Right. Businesses are in business for bottom line profits. That's it.
Yeah.
There's not any other way around it. Unfortunately, I know we like to think about businesses as a great place to come and mingle with your friends at the water cooler, but ultimately stock prices don't care about that. That's so right. They want to see your results, and sometimes they want to see that you're going to be the obvious fit, is what I call it. I want you to be the obvious fit. Out of the 100 applicants that are coming in here, you have to be the obvious fit. How do you become the obvious fit? The obvious choice.
It's true. Good. Tim, you were going to say?
Jeff, you talked about gamesmanship. I know personally I am like oddly ultra competitive about almost anything. I can make anything a competition in my life. So you talked about sending that video. Personally, if I know that Jeff Hancher and Matt Disher are both sending this hiring manager video, I'm going to rent one of those planes with the banner, and I'm going to then have my 100%. Picture and their picture and hi hiring manager, and I'm going to fly it past their office all afternoon.
You're going to figure out where they're vacationing and have that banner fly over the beach.
They're going to be laying on the beach, and
there's that
their
Tim
wife's
Keller
going to elbow them. Hey, look, hun, what the
This stuff matters, as corny as it is. And I've employed this at the Fortune 100 level. So I'm not giving advice that I haven't done myself, whether it's, finding a job is sales. You just become a salesperson, right? But I used to do this in the Fortune 100 space too. I would have a top executive that's making a buying decision. Everything's going great. They go cold. That happens in the recruiting process too. You send somebody, you have an interview, it goes cold. You're like, man, they said I was great. What's happening? Get creative with how you're going to engage. Because not only does that get their attention, but it says, wow, Tim's very resourceful. Here's one thing I do. And your listener can Google this: bear sitting on a table. Here's what you'll see when you Google that. You'll see a big black bear sitting on a table, and it looks silly. And then you send them an email, and the subject line is, I can barely take it. And then you write your message. Hey, now that I got your attention. What this does is it's constantly getting you out of the sea of sameness. We have to do this in the recruiting piece. And yes, results. But here's the thing. This is coming from a hiring manager that has hired thousands of people and has gone through tens of thousands of 20 of thousands of resumes in my career. It all becomes white noise at some point. If you can't articulate to me your methods that drove the results, I assume you're lying to me. I assume that everything on your resume is a lie. Prove me wrong. And you've got to be able to articulate methodology. Hey, great, you made President's Club 1 year. Were you good or were you lucky? You better be able to go into an interview and compel somebody as to your methodology, whatever that looks like. The other thing that I would tell you in looking, at what we were talking about getting out of the sea of sameness is, I mentioned it briefly, pre-call planning. Don't just give this LinkedIn video or this video text and assume everything's going to be great. Here's what we know about individuals and companies. They care about them more than they care about you or anybody else. So do a little bit of homework. I'm not saying go 1 hour of research to do a 30-second video, but you can hit Google, hit news and the company's name, and you could see the stock price went up 5% yesterday. Start your conversation that way. Hey, Matt, Jeff Hancher, leadership extraordinaire. First off, I want to congratulate your organization for closing the market yesterday at a 52-week high. That's amazing. In order to keep that up, I would assume that you're looking for great leaders to lead people, because as we know, organizations are built and they will rise and fall at the hand of leaders. I have great experience doing that in the military, and I know it's going to transition to your organization. How about we connect over a virtual coffee, and I can maybe tell you how I can get that stock price to 154. Fair enough. Now I'm getting out of the sea. Now I'm adding value. Now I'm speaking mass language and I'm proving through value that I might be able to support that. I'm getting that meeting.
Well, and I would be foolish on my end to not at least have that half an hour conversation with you.
That's the point.
Think about this, because then you go somewhere else. You go to one of my competitors and you move that needle, and then I'm like, oh, this is the Bitcoin conversation of 5 years ago. I asked my financial advisor if we should buy Bitcoin. I wouldn't do that. It's just a fad. It's going away. Man, Blockbuster buying Netflix. Like, it's all these things, these missed opportunities. Not that some of these are as obvious, but just sit down at the table for a half an hour and have a conversation. I would be foolish not to. And this is coming, a talent acquisition professional. I'd be foolish not to.
Yeah.
And Jeff, many times in your podcast, you've said the phrase, you get paid based off the problems you can solve.
Yes.
This essentially is a problem for the job seeker. How do I create my own space in this sea of talent that is pouring into this company? And you being able to come up with ideas like this shows that hiring manager, this guy can solve problems. He has a very not unique problem. It's a very common problem that so many people are having right now. And this individual found a unique way to hopefully solve this problem. Why not invest this half hour?
Yeah.
I lose nothing by having this conversation. And now all of a sudden that coveted one-on-one conversation you've just earned.
Yeah. So. And that's the key, earning it.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Job seekers are fighting for time. We're fighting for time, because here's what we know as a hiring manager. I want a passive candidate, preferably. The person that's unemployed isn't ideal, which is why I'm telling you all that. Now, I think the rules have bent slightly, and Matt, you would know better than anybody. I think there's more tolerance for being unemployed in today's world than there ever was, but it's still not an ideal scenario. That being said, you are fighting for time. You are absolutely fighting for time. Many hiring managers have what they call the non-negotiables. These are the things that will never get you an interview, and they're different for every hiring manager. May it be a college degree, may it be X amount of years of experience, may it be. If you're going to break the rules, which I love breaking rules in a good way, if you're going to break the rules, you have to be very compelling. I was told in my career, you're probably not going to get there because you don't have a 4-year degree. You're probably not going to get there because, well, that was a challenge to me. And I would tell, especially transitioning military, don't let the frustration get the best of you. It's going to be a journey, but here's what we know. We're built for resilience. And to your point, Tim, we'll get paid in proportion to the problems we can solve. Problem one, getting a great job in a great company that you can thrive in. That's your first problem. Go solve that problem, because the wealth building and the engagement and the stability, all this comes through this problem solving. First things first, have great perspective. It's going to be a challenge. That's kind of the point. You will get paid in proportion to the problems you can solve. Solve big problems, make big money. So never see the problem as a problem. See it as an opportunity. Go fix the problem. That's what we're built to do. That's what great leaders do. It starts in the job seeking, and then the real work begins once we get the leadership title.
Absolutely. And Jeff, you said how people along the way told you, hey, you don't have that 4-year degree. You're probably never going to get the opportunity that you're seeking out long term. I know personally, when somebody, you probably can't do it. Okay, let's go. I'm going to figure out how to do this now. I also take it as a challenge. This is just going to make that story, the success story, that much better. Like that's in a whole other chapter. Hey, I was told no, and look what I did.
And I that 4-year degree thing has always been a bother to me anyway. I understand the value of education, and I'm 100% on board. And I went and got mine to have a piece of paper hanging on the wall. But frankly, especially for those of us who have served in the military, that the things that I apply in my job every day largely did not come from my college education. They are things that I learned from practical application of and execution of operations and planning and missions. And when I write up plans at work, still today, I'm writing them in the 5-paragraph order. I'm writing them in SMEAC, situation, mission, execution, et cetera. Yeah. And I do that because I learned that in the military, that it's a great way to formulate your own plan, but it's a great way also to show other people what your plan is. Here's the situation, guys. Here's what we're going to, the mission is this, the execution will be multiple pages of et cetera, et cetera. Those are things that we're finding this more and more. There's a conversation around the degrees that people go get that are completely useless to their careers. Again, I'm not bashing in any way education. Education's great. Get the right education, the right experience. And Jeff, you mentioned something in the very beginning of our show today, and it was embracing that experience. Hiring managers and executives have to embrace the experience of the person. I had this conversation quite a bit, again, with the 20-year retiring service member who is coming out, and maybe they don't have a degree, or maybe they only have 1 degree, and they're like, I think I need more degrees. And I'm like, listen, you need to go into an interview or a discussion, a networking discussion, and lean heavily on your experience, your worldly experience, your actual execution of moving billions of dollars of logistics from the United States to Kuwait, for example, is far more compelling to me as a recruiter than what sort of underwater basket weaving degree you got online. It doesn't.
No doubt.
The degree is not as important in that case as the experience level. So if you are a person who is trying to lean on your experience, heavily lean on your experience, learn how to sell that to somebody versus selling, I got 4 years of a degree, because a lot of us can go sit in a classroom. Again, not bashing education, but a lot of us can go sit in a classroom and it doesn't prove anything to us. Not everybody can move $1 billion worth of logistics from Andrews Air Force Base to Iraq. So
well, that's back to that methodology. Like, okay, that's fantastic that you hit that KPI or that milestone, but that's not what we're hiring for.
Right.
Like that shows me a track record, but will your methodology translate into what I'm hiring for? We see this fail big time with internal hires. I was a great individual contributor, so surely I'm going to be a great leader. Oh no, most times not. what attributes do you have that are going to correlate over to that? I recently did an interview with Mike Sorelli, who is former special ops commander, and he wrote the book, The Talent War. I don't know if I'm allowed to promote that on your show or not,
sure.
But he talks about this, and he's like, man, aren't you glad that special operations doesn't have the hiring process as many businesses out there? He said, because we have these people come in and we kind of create these biases, like they're probably going to crush this test or do it great, but we let the process tell us who is going to do that and who is fit for it. What we think really doesn't matter. The process tells us. So we have to have a great hiring process, and we can't deviate from the process. If you have a great hiring process, what you think is irrelevant. The process will get you to an output. So whether they have a degree, they don't have a degree, look, if that's the criteria you're putting out there, I would tell you that ship has sailed. Get over your stagnant hiring processes.
Right.
And find those gaps, like be open to what that might look like. And I'm not saying diminish skill and, whatever it is in part of your criteria, but think beyond what normal might be for you. And I'm not saying go rogue and be a renegade at your company, but, I think as hiring managers, we have to educate ourselves. What they're doing over at EF Overwatch is amazing. If you're listening and you're a transitioning veteran right now, that's something you should probably look at. They help transitioning leaders get into corporations, and they're educating these businesses on, hey, you might want to change your stagnant model. And so that would be a resource that I would look at if I were them. But we got to get out of the sea of sameness. Hopefully a couple of those tips help.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, one of your other recent episodes, you had the topic of replacing should. You talked about people shoulding all over themselves.
Yes.
Replacing should. Yeah, Matt likes it.
Yeah.
Matt likes it. And
somebody's listening to this on their way to work, and they're like, wait, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoulding all over themselves. And if you like that, go listen to the episode. And then there is a second episode that goes along with it. It's the outtakes from that episode.
Oh my gosh.
The shoulding outtakes. So replacing should with the phrases I want, I will, and I can. I found this episode to be of great value, and I've already started to work on this myself and talk to others about it in my workplace. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on that? Because people coming out of the service, I should have went to school. I should have done this. I should have tried harder. How do we get rid of shoulding all over ourselves?
Yeah, this was the outtakes. My man Lem, my co-host, he put those out. I didn't know he was going to, but I'll tell you, it was the hardest episode I ever had to get through. But I knew I had to because I'm passionate about the subject. But the play on words was a little bit of the marketing team doing their finest, right?
Yeah.
You should yourself to death so much, especially if we lack confidence. And confidence is a deal breaker. I don't care if it's career, social, whatever it might be. Confidence is a killer. And, I always say that life and death comes from the power of the tongue, right? Your mindset absolutely matters. Whether you're transitioning, whether you're, I say it all the time, success is uphill. Oh, that's really comforting, Jeff. Well, your mindset is designed to separate yourself. And so are you always the person that's talking about what you should do? I know it's been this way with me over the last several weeks about working out, getting a stronger fitness routine. And I'm having my family hold me accountable. And there have been times, like the goal is I'm going to work out for 30 minutes every day within a 24-hour scope. There have been times, guys, that it will be 11:30 at night and I'm dragging myself down to my home gym. But I'm like, you know what? This isn't going to do itself. I'm done talking about what I should do. I will do this. Now, mindset says I'm going to see things that will be, that aren't as they will be. What is that for you? What is that for that transitioning person? What is that for the person that's displaced? Are you talking about what should be or what is going to be? And this mindset shift is absolutely powerful. Words of affirmation. And I'm not one of these like burn the incense guys and have a pep rally for yourself. But what I will say is this: what you speak matters. It absolutely matters. So stop talking about what you should do. Shoulding on yourself gets you nowhere. When you start changing small things to an assertive approach, I will do this. I can do this. It's going to change how the pursuit happens and get people to hold you accountable to it. Don't talk about I should be working out. No kidding, Sherlock. Everybody knows you should be. What are you going to do? I will do this.
Yeah.
Prioritize it. The other thing that I'll tell you about this, because this is mindset, goal setting, right? Here's what I want people to do when you keep talking about I should. Write your top 3 goals down. I don't care what they are. Lose weight, make more money, get the promotion, whatever it might be. Put them in the SMART model. Put them on a small index card on the front so that you can see them. And on the back, I want you to put 3 things that these goals are attached to that mean something to you. It could be Jacqueline, my daughter. It could be my sick parent. It could be a cause that's important to me. Just find 3 things. 3 things that if you stared and thought at them enough, it would make you emotional. That if I get these goals, it's going to help me help that emotional thing. I want you to get this index card, and I want you to put it on your nightstand. And every morning, I want you to look at those goals and remind yourself that today is the day that not that I should, that I will. And look at those goals and then lay it back down. Every night that you go to bed, I want you to pick it up. And I want you to look at those goals and the plan that you had to achieve those goals and ask yourself, did you should or did you? And if the answer is I did not, I want you to flip that index card and I want you to start saying names out loud. Jacqueline, you weren't worth it today. Dad, you weren't worth it today. And I mean out loud. Wow, Jeff, that's ruthless. That's heartless. That's cold. Stop shoulding. Stop shoulding. There are people counting on us to win. It's not about you as a leader. It's not about you anymore. Whether you have the big title or not, you're leading and influencing people. At the essence of leadership is influence. There are people counting on you to win. Take your should from an I will. And if you don't, look that person on that card in the face and say, Tim, Matt, you weren't worth it today. Then go to bed. Get a great night's rest. Get up and take your should from an I will to an I will.
This is, I mean, it's such powerful stuff. It reminds me of the whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I had this conversation the other day, interestingly enough, with my 10-year-old son who didn't understand any of it. But but I was like trying to tell him that if you think you can't, you're right. If you think you can, you're right. But the shoulding and the confidence in what you're talking about, this has been a lesson for me in my own career too. It means the difference between when you're sitting down with a leadership team or executives or your counterparts or whatever and conveying information. If you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, even though you do, you could be the subject matter expert, but you use words like, I think, and well, I guess we're going to do this and we should do this. You sound like you don't know what you're talking about.
Right on.
And I've changed some language. I had a mentor in our previous workplace together, Jeff. Stacy was one of my best mentors. Stacy used to tell me all the time, stop saying you think you should, and stop using the I thinks and we should and maybe this and maybe that, and start saying we're doing and this. And it was all of the words, the executionary words, the do it. Stop talking about what we should be doing. Nobody ever told me to stop shoulding all of myself, though.
Hey, it's tough to forget it, right?
First time for everything.
Matt, it's such a big opportunity in leadership that I built a whole course around it. And it's amazing. Like challenging leadership. I've been through years and years of succession planning. Challenging leadership is one of the biggest things that holds leaders back. And it's really at the heart of, the passive, assertive, passive, aggressive. Sitting in that assertive is the sweet spot. So how do we get the passives up? How do we pull the aggressives down? A lot of it is in our words. And so I built a whole class around this assertive approach because a lot of it is people just don't know. It's not that they don't desire, they just don't know. Or they saw Matt do it that way. So that's how Matt's the big boss and that's how Matt does it. So that's how I'm going to do it. That's not the answer.
Right.
There's a right way to do it. And a lot of it is in your approach. Our words matter. Matter of fact, they're life-changing. What you say matters, and what you say carries impact. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in leadership, whatever it might be, taking an assertive approach is the absolute best way in all areas of life. Not aggressive. We don't make people bleed. Not passive. We're not apologizing all the time. If you're late to a meeting, don't apologize. Thank people for their patience. There's a difference. That doesn't make you rude. It's a different approach. That's the essence of it. Good
100%.
point.
Should, I feel, is more like a suggestion. Hey, we should have, we should see 10% profits growth this quarter. Oh, okay.
Right. How?
Hey, we want to see 10% profit growth this quarter. Mm-hmm. We can do A, B, and C, and we will do D, E, and F. And based off these things, we should see this profit growth. If we go into that meeting and say, we should see 10% profit growth, we should probably, bump the price up on this, and we should maybe do this, or we should maybe hire these people. These are suggestions versus, as Jeff laid out, assertive, like, not directives. I think directives possibly are a little too aggressive, but you're asserting the plan. You have a plan laid out. It's concrete. Hey, this is where we're going.
And a great way to step into that is the old thing about under promising and over delivering. Come in and say, we're going to do this. Mm-hmm. We're going to do 10% more, because you're going to do 10% more. Yeah. You know that's a very realistic goal. It's the 25 meter target, so to speak, but you're aiming for the 50 meter target. Come in and say, we're going to do 10%. Then at the end of the year, when you've done 15%, you're like, boom. Everybody's like, wow, you did 15%. That's 5% more than we said before, in whatever it is. So then you don't have, I think a lot of people come in with the shoulds and the I think we cans, because they're not quite sure about how they're going to execute that. And they're not quite sure about, barring COVID part 2, we can do 10% more. We can do this. It's possible. Then over deliver it. Yeah.
I will tell you, and I think we might have talked about this briefly when we met last, but a lot of it is mindset. And when you're shooting, you haven't fully bought in. Mm-hmm. You haven't, I do the keynote on state of readiness. And one thing I talk about is engaging your motivation. And the first thing is believing that you can do it, that you're capable of doing it. And to get you to offer proof that you can do it, I'm going to paint a nasty picture, but it's going to drive a point. So, listener, you get the call. You get the call that somebody that you love dearly has just been life flighted to the hospital and things aren't looking good. What do? Well, most likely you would get whatever means possible. You would get to that hospital as fast as you could. Would you speed? Tim, would you speed to the hospital?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So you would break the law. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would. And you get to the hospital and they say, Tim, we need you to sign in. We need you to get through security. We need you to get this PPE. Meanwhile, you got the call saying it's not looking good. It might be minutes. It might be seconds. You would start breaking all kind of rules. You would start doing things that you didn't think was possible. This is how moms lift cars off of children, mm-hmm. which doesn't seem humanly possible. You would get into that hospital room at any cost, whatever it took. So now we've proven what we're capable of doing mm-hmm. when something's at stake that matters most. But yet as salespeople, we don't want to pick the phone up because they might say something nasty. As a leader, we don't want to have the tough conversation because they might be offended. Oh, well, Jeff, man, those are two contrasting things. We're talking about life and death, and we're talking about a small conversation. The point is this: you can do it.
Right.
It's not, I should do it. I will do it. I can do it. It's a choice. It comes down to a choice. Yes, there's can't do's and won't do's. Can't do is I haven't been skilled or I don't have the aptitude. A won't do, you own it. You own that thing. And I'll tell you this, it's no better than letting that loved one sit in that hospital room and casually making your way there. That's why you flip that index card. You don't want to work out? You don't want to be healthy. You don't want to live to be an old man to take care of your family. You don't want to lead well so that you can take care of your parents' prescriptions and their life of poverty. Fill in the blank. But you need to look at them in the face and tell them they weren't worth it. Because most times what I've learned, Matt and Tim, it's not a matter of can you or should you. It's will you. It's will you. You can outwork your lack of skill. I'm a living example. Go make it happen. Make it happen.
Yeah. It's just not that you can't. All of a sudden, the goal line, the boundary has been moved, and
yes.
So now you're like, well, I can't lift that car. Well, my child's stuck under there. No one else is going to get that car for my child. That boundary's 100%. Been pushed. My mother, my father, whoever is in that hospital, I have to get there. That boundary's been pushed. I'll get there however I need to get there. Same thing in business. They bumped our quota up 20% this year. Guess what? You were already hitting that 20% the past 5 years anyways.
Yes.
The goal has just been moved. It's first and goal. Guess what? They moved the end zone 20 yards down the field. The goal's still just get in the end zone.
Right.
Now you just have to cover 20 extra yards. Just go do it. You know you can do it. Go do it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, anybody in sports, football players don't say, "Oh no, we got sacked five yards behind the line of scrimmage, and now we have 5 more yards to get a first down." They don't say, "I quit." You're making money to get there. Special operations people know through and through that your body can take 100% more than what you think it can. In my experience, my first experience of that was Paris Island. I was not a highly athletic person in high school. I joined the Marines, and suddenly they're making me run like 3 or 4 miles a day and push my body to the extreme limits. But the thing was, my body never broke. I did it, and I kept getting better at it and better at it to the point where we almost became machines in some cases. Mm-hmm. But you absolutely can. I think sometimes we're bound by, I know we're running into the clock here. Sometimes we're bound by the rules or expectations of companies or our leadership. And in my opinion, a great leader, I work with and among and for some of the best leaders with whom I've ever worked in my entire career right now. And a lot of the greatness about these people is that they make the leash long. It is not hard to get the job done. The approval process for getting things, in some cases, there's not an approval process. Let's just go. Let's just move it. And in some cases, it's, fail fast and fail cheap. We're not failing often, but we're very much aware that if it doesn't work, then let's pull it back and try something different. Hey, no skin off our back. Let's just keep going. So that is, in many cases, for the leader listening, your team who is not performing is bound by whatever rules you have set up or whatever rules the company has set up. And whether those rules are real or fake, the idea is that you want them to have some leash and some flexibility to make mistakes or try new things to get to the next level. And if you're not allowing them that leash or that area to run, they're not going to try anything new. They're not going to take any risks. And thusly, they're going to continue to do the same thing over and over and over again.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Thanks, Jeff. We're running out of time here, so I wanted to give you the floor for one last couple moments. Let everybody know where they can find you, can listen to all these great podcasts you keep producing and putting out here. Where can they find this value?
I appreciate the opportunity to you guys, first and foremost, Tim, Matt. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the deposits that you're making to the veteran community, to the transitioning community, quite frankly, to everybody that's looking to improve. So it's a privilege to be on with you guys. So first off, thank you for that. I can be found under my name. Google it. You can find anything you want. The website's easy, jeffhancher.com. There you'll find opportunities for executive coaching. You can email about that. There's a wait list right now, but I'd love to put you on it. Otherwise, you can join one of our executive masterminds or leadership development groups that meet twice a month. That's a good way to continue to sharpen the axe. We have a great team we're building for training, all things sales, all things leadership, corporate culture. We'd love an opportunity to make a deposit into you, your leadership team. You can find all that at jeffhancher.com. The podcast can be found anywhere podcasts are streamed under the Champion Forum. Would love your feedback. Would love to hear what you want to hear more of. So go check out the podcast. That's free. It comes out every Thursday morning. I can be followed on socials under my name. Instagram, Jeff. I think it's Jeff.Hancher, something like that. When you Google it, when you search it, you'll know it pretty quick. But I love making the deposits, and if I can serve a listener in any way, I'd love to hear from you. I can be reached at jeff@jeffhancher.com.
Yeah. He's not a hard guy to find, folks. Yeah, you can definitely find Jeff on multiple platforms. And if you've listened or watched today's episode, you understand this is just the very tip of the iceberg. Jeff has so much more value to add to you in your professional life as well. So if you're in need of any of those things, reach out to Jeff. Absolutely. So Matt, before we go, any last words?
Jeff, great stuff. As always, I truly value you being on here. I value our friendship, our ongoing relationship. And I personally gain so much from hearing you speak as well and listening to your podcast. But then when you come on here, I'm going to hang up the phone here and gear up to go to the gym because my family's worth it.
There you go. There you go.
He's not going to shoot himself today.
That's right.
In all honesty, it is. It's one of those things where you meet great people along the way, and I consider you one of those great people that I have met along the way, and I like to keep in touch with you. So I always value everything that comes out of your mouth. So
feelings are mutual.
Again, I appreciate you being on the show with us today, and we'll have you back in another 6 months or so.
Sounds good. The hat trick is coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jeff, just going to reiterate what Matt said. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get out of here, I did want to take one moment. My wife's grandmother passed away last night. So rest in peace to Virginia Cummings. You will be missed, ma'am. With that being said, you can find us on all major social media platforms, Beyond the Wire there, or you can find us on all your major podcast platforms. Give us a rating, give us a review, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a loved one. We'd love to have a conversation. So if you are in the veteran space, a transitioning veteran, or a professional yourself and would like to come on and have a conversation with us, we'd love to have a conversation with you. So you can reach out to us on any of those sites, any of those platforms. So until next time, we'll be right back here on the Beyond the Wire podcast.